and welcome to Look Down There, the show where we talk about all the things we don't talk about. I'm your host, Michelle Lamore. Today, my guest is a Master of Education in Sex Education and is currently pursuing her PhD in Human Sexuality. Amazing. She runs the popular Instagram account, the Millennial Sexpert, where she aims to be a resource of education, empowerment, and acceptance. All good things. She is also presenting at InToPleasure, our virtual pleasure positive event on April 2nd. And I am so excited to have her here today. Please welcome Javay da BAE. Hi, Javay.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I just like saying your name. It's so great.
It's always so funny because I don't know how my mother came up with it, but I was obsessed with all things French growing up. And it sounds so much like French. Like I studied it in school for like 8 years. And so it sounds a lot like Javay, as in like I am.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a funny coincidence.
Yeah. Javay is I'm going. Yes. Or I'm going.
As you see, I haven't studied in a minute. Is it I'm going?
I think, is it? I don't know. We'll have to consult the textbooks, but either way, you're going.
I'm going.
So you're going places. So Javay da BAE, that's your given name. Amazing.
Not the debate part. I added that later.
Oh, I was like, oh wow, Mom, way to go. She was like on top of it.
No. She was not on top of it that much. I added the debate part in college when BAE was like such a popular slang term. And I was like, oh my goodness, it rhymes. And then I slowly shifted it once I went back to school. And now instead of it meaning before anything else, I consider it to mean Black and educated because for some odd reason, I can't stay out of school.
Yes, I like it. Yeah. School's a safe place.
I think school is. Academia, not so much.
Yeah. I hear you on that. So what drew you to all of this work? Were you always like a very sexually confident teenager growing up, or do you have like a natural curiosity?
I definitely had a natural curiosity. That was for sure. But it was not an intentional decision. It wasn't that wasn't what I started out on. At a young age though, I was like, I'm going to be a Playboy bunny. And my mother actually supported it. She was like, do your thing. Obviously I did not become a Playboy bunny. But I was always fascinated with all things to do with sex. Found porn in elementary school, found my dad's stash and I was like, this is so cool. Decided that I wanted to be a Playboy bunny, was obsessed with Pretty Woman. But then somewhere in between elementary school and high school, things really shifted. And I think that's it shifted because the shame that our society puts on sex. And so I left all those dreams behind and I was going to become a gynecologist. And I was like, I'm going to deliver babies. That's what I'm going to do. And then it shifted and I was like, actually, I'm going to be the CEO of the Walt Disney Company because I'm terrible at science and I'll never be a doctor. And I literally moved to LA with that. That was the goal when I moved to LA. I was like, I'm going to be the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And literally all of my friends are like, Javay, I don't think you can say a sentence without saying fuck. I don't think you're going to be the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And I was like, you just wait and see. And then I happened to start working in a talent agency. And I started a YouTube channel because I was working with our digital department. And I like to know what we ask people to do. And so I was like, if we're working with a lot of YouTubers, I want to understand how they work because I don't want us to be I like to really be good at my job. So I went and launched my own YouTube channel. And shortly after, my friends were like, you should talk about sex. You should talk about sex. Because I was very vocal about it. We all knew everybody knew what I was about when it came to sex.
So were you always the one that people would go to? I have this embarrassing thing. I can't talk about this with anybody else.
Not until sophomore year of college. Me and my friends obviously talked about stuff. I was doing things in high school, but I was also I hadn't actually had penetrative sex until sophomore year of college. I was very much I'm waiting to be in love. I'm only giving blowjobs. And now that I look back though, I was actively having a lot of sex because I was engaging in sexual activity with women. But because of our society, I was like, no, I'm a virgin. I've never done anything because I've never had a penis inside of me, except my mouth. And then looking back, I was like, oh, wait, no, you've actually always been a little slutty slut. And like looking back, I'm like so proud of it. But in the moment, I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a good girl. I've never had sex.
I love it. We all have our lines. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so by sophomore year, I became that friend and everybody was like, oh my gosh, no, talk to Javay. Like, she's the one to talk to. She's out here doing some wild shit. And so then those same college friends, once I started the YouTube channel, were like, talk about sex. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then I was like, wait, what do I talk about with sex? Like, especially because like I'm bisexual, and I was like, as a early 20 something bisexual woman, I didn't even know how to like tell people to have safer sex with other vulvas. And I was like, I can't talk about sex. I don't know shit about sex. And so I got a job at a sex shop in LA. And that's where it started. It used to be called A Touch of Romance, but now it's called Lovers. It's in Culver City, right across from the Westfield Mall. And it's so funny. Like, I really think that was like just like a meant to be thing, because shortly after putting in an application there, I just like happened to go like thrift shopping, and I went to one of the out of the closets. I think it was like, maybe it was in Silver Lake or something. I went to an out of the closet and I was like, I really need a jean jacket. I found the most perfect jean jacket. And it literally was like, I guess like an old like employee's jean jacket that they donated, because it had A Touch of Romance, what is that? Embroidered. Yeah. Embroidered into it. And I was like, holy crap, I just applied to work there. I'm gonna get it. And then I got the job. And then I was like, oh wait, I love everything about this. Like, this is my vibe.
Oh, I love that story. All the twists and turns that got you going exactly where you need to be. I love it.
So many twists and turns.
Yes, it's so good. So as you're like moving along and you're studying, like, how has this impacted you personally?
I think it's definitely shifted like my views around sex, in the sense that before like going to school, I really like considered sex to just be like the act of sex. And like, that's all that you need to know about. Like, if you know how to suck a dick well or finger somebody good, then like you're going to be great at sex. Relationships will be perfect. And now I'm like, one, my definition of sex is expanded. It's not just like a penis and a vagina or like only oral sex. Like, it includes so much more, but also it's like, all these other aspects make it better sex. Like, I thought I was having good sex, like in my early 20s, which, come on, was I? Definitely not. But now I'm like, I'm having good sex because like I can actually like speak up for myself and talk about things that matter. I can recognize situations where I'm like, oh no, this is a no, especially as a Black woman with large tits that talks about sex. Like, I now, if I wasn't actually in the academic realm of it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is totally okay. And now I'm like,
yeah. Yeah. It's funny, like how, I mean, it's not funny. It's interesting how, like, when you go into this line of work or you talk about sex, or like for me, I perform and I take my clothes off, so people feel like they have this access to me to like say really inappropriate things and, think that I am okay with everything. And I certainly thought for a long time, well, yeah, I have to be okay with everything because I've opened myself up to this. And I really didn't come to terms with like actually having boundaries and it being okay to have boundaries until maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. And I've been performing for 20 years. So, that's a long time to just accept these things that are coming your way that, like, yes, nudity does not equal consent.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And talking about blowjobs does not equal consent to blowjobs. Right?
Truly.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about, because it's like outside of like intentional conversations, like you just think like, oh, this is the way it is, so like that's the way it is. And especially as like women and femme identifying individuals, we're taught like no, if you talk about these things, that means that you are always okay with them. And that is never the case. Like, no, just because I talk about something like does not mean I could talk about wanting to eat Burger King. That don't mean I want you to bring me Burger King. Like, honestly, always check in with me. I want Taco Bell before Burger King. Always. Like, it just because you talk about stuff does not automatically make it inherent. And I think that the way we in our society view sexuality, I would say it's one of the biggest hurdles. It's like being like, no, just because I'm a sexuality professional does not mean that I am your open door, like, whore.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't,
no.
this is kind of on topic, kind of off topic, but have you been watching Pam and Tommy at all?
I have not. I've been working on a research project, so I haven't watched any new shows.
Yeah, no, it's real intense. It makes me really angry. But they just had this scene last week where they are interrogating Pam Anderson and trying to undermine her because, of course, she should be fine with this because she posed in Playboy. What's the difference? And it's kind of like exactly what we're talking about. It's like just because it was okay in one context doesn't mean it gives blanket consent to all access everything.
Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, not the same thing. I'm pretty sure Playboy paid her.
Yeah.
Like, that's a job.
Exactly.
That's a job, not the same situation by any means.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, give it a watch. It will definitely make your blood boil.
I feel like that's most TV shows now. I'm like, is it getting worse? Are y'all getting worse?
Yeah, I was just reading something about that today that it's like they're really showcasing toxic relationships lately, and I don't really know what that's about or why that's like so happening right now. Like there's that happening, but there's also really good things happening like sex education. I love that show. What do you like that show?
Again, behind. I need to like fully catch up on like everything new. This pandemic has ruined my watching abilities. Also, probably like being in a PhD program probably ruined my watching abilities.
Sure. Yeah.
But I've heard great things about it. I have yet to start it. The only recent like sex related show I did was the Sex Lives of College Girls.
So good.
So fun. I was like,
So
this. Yes.
Yes. It was so like brutally honest and hilarious. It was amazing. Yeah. Very grateful to Mindy Kaling for writing that one for sure.
Yeah. But like most other shows, I agree. Like for some odd reason, toxicity is the theme of TV lately. And it's like, we are already living in a pandemic. We are living in utter garbage of a world. We don't need to, like, if we're trying to actually detach and like relax, we don't need more toxicity. And that's all. I'm like, it feels like that's all everything is just like straight toxic. The only way you're not watching toxic stuff is if you really like get out of like regular genres and like reality, like realish realm genres. Like if you go the sci-fi route, you're probably going to get some stuff that's not super toxic in the sense of like outward like trauma inducing or like trauma porn. Like, but if you're just like watching like a regular scripted show that's like rooted in like the realism of our real world, it's going to be straight toxic nowadays.
Yeah. Ugh. I don't know. I don't know what this trend is about, but hopefully it's on its way out.
I hope. I really do.
I don't know, Javay. We have a lot of work to do. It's a lot of work to do. It's just like job security, right?
Yep. But actually it is.
It is. And like, I don't know about you. I'm in the empowerment field, like for women. I've been in this field for a long time. At the same time that I'm inspired to do this work, I also get insanely frustrated that it still needs to happen. And I kind of lose touch with it because the people that I surround myself with are empowered and like sexually positive and pleasure positive. And so I kind of lose touch with like, oh, that's not the world. There's still like a lot of work to do. Do you feel that way?
100%, because I'm like, I have like my like small circle of folks, but in the like, especially now living in like Bend, Oregon, where I'm like still trying to grow a community, it is not around, I don't have like a circle of like sex positivity. It's like, oh, I have to go through a conversation that is completely normal, that my house is like decked out in like sex toy packaging. And like me and my husband have a setup on all of the beds in the house with the restraint systems. Like, it's always a new conversation. And I'm like, why am I still having to do this? Like, also, why am I having to justify my work? Like, why do I do this? Because obviously you need it because you're really apprehensive and like jittery around the topic of like, oh, someone like talks about pleasure on the regular. That's what?
Yeah. Like who knew that was such a dirty word, pleasure? How would you define pleasure?
Pleasure is anything and everything that makes you feel good, and good in a variety of ways, not just like physically, but also like emotionally and mentally and spiritually. So like it's eating like a delicious strawberry cheesecake. It's like having the most like body melting massage where you literally just drift off to sleep and you feel like you just took an edible and like you're high as a kite, but really someone just like worked out all the knots in your body. Like I will always remember one of the best massages I ever had. I was completely sober, but you would have thought I was high because like I just like went into like, honestly, it was like a form of subspace. I like drifted off so well that I like had a conversation with Robin Williams in the form of Genie. Like, it was like that was the most pleasurable massage I've ever had in my life. And it was actually from one of my best friends. She literally was doing massage therapy. And so I went over and got a massage and she gave me that massage. And I was like, bro, I was talking to Robin Williams during that. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, that was that good, dude. I like slipped off and me and Robin Williams were having a conversation, but he was his genie. And she was like, okay.
Did you get your wish? That's what I want to know.
I think it's still on the way. I don't feel that it's come yet. I think it's still on the way.
All right.
But so yeah, pleasure is like all those things that feel really good and like a whole different level of good. Not like your typical like, oh yeah, these fries from McDonald's are really good. They were warm and like had the right amount of salt. But like today was like such a pleasurable day. Like I got to take time doing what I wanted to do. I got to nourish myself the way I wanted to nourish myself. Like that's pleasure. And then when it comes to sex, it's actually doing what feels good, not what you're supposed to do, in the sense of like, oh, well, you do foreplay, like you kiss, and then maybe there's some oral sex, and then there's like penetration, and then like somebody comes and you're done. Like, no, pleasure is writing your own script in the bedroom. It's like, actually, can we start off with the penetration and then move to the oral sex and then move to a body massage, AKA foreplay, or however you want to do it? Like, it's not following somebody else's rules. It's doing the rules that you want to do because they feel good to you. That's pleasure.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I feel like it's important to talk about that pleasure doesn't just happen. Like it has to be like an intentional practice. And that was one of the biggest lessons for me is that, and not only concerning pleasure, but also just happiness in general, that like happiness is a pursuit. Pleasure is a pursuit. It's like, it's not something that is a passive activity. Like, good on you if you happen to fall into something pleasurable or something that makes you happy, but that's not really the best way to go about it. So putting that intention behind seeking out, like being a pleasure seeker.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I saw on your website, you were talking about a pleasure practice. So how would you advise building a pleasure practice?
Well, like you said, with the intention, like it's not just like something like, oh, I wake up every day and I masturbate and like that's my pleasure practice. Like, yes, that can be a part of it, but it needs to be like I'm intentionally setting aside this time to focus on myself in a form of masturbation, in a form of meditation, in a form of yoga, whatever you want to do with it. But the pleasure practice is intentionally carving out that time to do something that will revitalize you, like give you goosebumps, however it is, but it's something that you're like, I'm going to make sure I do this the way I want to do it. I'm not just going to like, oh, well, I guess if I have an orgasm before I go to work, I'll have a better day. Like, no, be like, no, I'm going to have an orgasm before I go to work to ensure that I have a pleasurable day. But so setting the intention, but also actively like making the time for it, I think is the hardest part. In our world, like we have just like created a society where it's like, go, 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 do, make. And that's like the opposite of pleasure. Like that's literally the opposite of having an intentional life. And so if you are actively like being like, cool, I'm blocking off this 20-minute block in my calendar so no one schedules a meeting, no one calls me on Teams, whatever it is, to act like go make myself lunch and like meditate, or like go get in the bathtub and have a nice little midday soak, whatever it is. That is a pleasure practice. Actually making sure you're setting aside the time for yourself, because most of us, especially women, we don't do that. We don't set aside time for ourselves. We set aside time for everyone else and every other thing that needs to be done, but it is not us. It is not, I'm going to actually take this time, close the door, turn on whatever song I've been dying to listen to, whoever dropped a new album, and just like get lost in music. Like I'm 15 in my room again, just like blasting the latest like emo music and really feeling Panic at the Disco, because I need that emotional outlet of like scream singing. I write sins, not tragedies.
Your millennial is showing, Javay.
Right? You should see me in like when I'm doing like college workshops and I'm like, oh my goodness.
I love it. Yeah, but pleasure gets deprioritized. It's not important. And as women, I think a lot of us tend to serve pleasure in others instead of actually valuing our own pleasure. So, what would you say to someone who feels like that, and also to someone who feels like, are you crazy? I have 14 kids and I'm the CEO of Disneyland. So how am I gonna make time for pleasure? What advice would you have for someone like that?
Start small. It doesn't have to be like a full like 2-hour daily ritual. It can be like a short 5-minute daily ritual where you're like, all right, cool. Well, honey, you take the kids, or like oldest one, you are in charge of breakfast today, rotate it out. That's also a great way. You like got to get creative with it. Be like, everybody gets a day of the week and you get to pick the breakfast for the day and you're in charge of it. And mommy's going to take 5 minutes and you're going to surprise me with it. And you're going to go in and you're going to take those 5 minutes to journal and like intentionally release things that you may have been holding in because you got a lot on your plate. Or you're going to take those 5 minutes and you were going to turn on some soothing music and just like give yourself a nice little sensual like arm massage to like release that tension. You, like start small. You don't have to, pleasure practices don't have to out of the gate be like this like extensive like 3 12-hour type thing where you're like unbothered by anybody, because like that's unreasonable. So starting small with things that are super manageable, especially like if you have 14 kids, or if you are a CEO of a business, you probably do not have the time right now to like fully invest in something like creating your own personal space. It's like, this is just for me, no one come in here. So starting out with things that are more easy, like buying yourself a new journal, buying yourself just a new mug that is intentionally for your special like coffee or tea time in the morning or the evening, where you're just like, I make myself my favorite tea, I make myself my favorite coffee, and I just sit there and I enjoy the flavors and I actually take note of it, instead of, you know, drinking a cold cup of coffee because you poured it and then you had to feed a 6-month-old and an 8-year-old and make somebody else breakfast. Like, do the little things, like be like, this is my coffee cup.
Yeah.
This is my I love me coffee cup.
Yes. And to be present for the little things, because we can do the little things, but then we might not even take notice or be present for them. But yeah, it's important to do that. But as you were talking 2 days ago, I was having my own little like pleasure time, and I was like, I'm gonna make some hot chocolate, and I got out my special marshmallows. I mean, hot chocolate is really just an excuse to have marshmallows. Like we all know this, right? Come on. So like I made my hot chocolate on the stove, poured it into like the cutest little cup that I'll show you after this talk. It's so cute. So I poured it in the cup and I was very excited to drink it. And I took a sip of it and it was so hot that I couldn't swallow. Oh, no. So now I just had all this scalding liquid in my throat, and I'm looking around the room trying to figure out like, what do I do with this? Oh, and I just ended up like spitting it all over in the kitchen sink. And I was like, oh my God. And I totally burnt my throat like really bad. Really? Yes. So, be present with your pleasure.
Yes. Blow on it if you make a hot beverage.
I was like, I just really wanted it right then. I didn't want to wait.
I get it. Like, hot chocolate, man. Like such a that's such a good. Now I want hot chocolate.
Oh, and it was like yum, yum too. I'd use coconut milk and cocoa powder and like a little maple syrup with some salt and vanilla. Like I made like it wasn't no Swiss Miss crap. Like it was like real shit. And then I just like, like I'm just now recovering from my burn. It's ridiculous. Uh, so moving on, tell me, well, I'll ask that later. So I feel like every generation has a different attitude towards sex and sexuality. So how would you define like what the millennial attitude is? And me personally, like I'm on the cusp. I was born in 80, so I'm like straddling the line. So how would you define what sex is for the millennial generation?
That's so fun. I think it's very varied. I think also the millennial generation is like the most like it's so hard to like generalize it because it's such a mix. Like you have your cussed folks, you have the folks that are like, I was literally like straddling like the digital age. Like I remember floppy disk and I also remember like every new piece of technology. And so it's so varied in like how we view sex. I feel like overall, generally though, we all have like this idea of like, it should be good for everyone. I think we really like champion that notion around it. It was like, it's not just for folks with penises to have fun with, like all of us are supposed to enjoy it. But I think we still have a lot of like a lot of that shame like ingrained in us. Like it was taught, like a lot of us heard like, don't do this, don't do that growing up. And so we like still like hold it with us, but we're actively trying to be like, no, I don't need that. That literally is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. But I think we're defining it as just like something that we are actively trying to enjoy. It's one of the few things that we can actively take control of to enjoy in this world that we have been given as a gift of straight flaming garbage. Mm-hmm. And so I think for us millennials, it's like, this can be something that I actually do enjoy and love and want to partake in, and have like my own rule book on, especially in the sense of like the advances around it. Like we got sex toys that I don't think anyone in the boomer generation could have ever dreamed of. Like we have so many different ways to maximize our sex lives and what we enjoy with it and the pleasure within that, that other generations didn't have. And I think we're at the forefront of like having that creativity to be like, you know what we need? This wild contraption.
Yeah.
That you got to finagle your body a little bit, but it does some wild, amazing things.
Yeah. We need a clit sucker.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we did. So grateful for that one.
Yes, yes, yes. I would like to lobby to change the name of that because I think it's bullshit. I think I'm not saying, clit sucker. Yes, call it that. Don't call it the womanizer. I hate it.
Sucker. Like that one's always so weird. I'm like, but also I think that's also shows like the difference in like culture around the generations, is that the womanizer was created in Germany. And so like seeing like the differences, like I think that using womanizer in Germany, like granted I've never been, is like equivalent to like how the UK uses like cunt.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, like,
no, that's a good point.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't realize that. Okay, Javay, tell me about your class for InToPleasure, because this is going to be super fun. I'm super pumped about it. Tell me what is in store without giving away all the juicy details.
So it is, it's living your XXX fantasy, like how to fuck like a porn star. And basically it is your one-stop shop on how to like really make a top tier quality at home porno that honestly every major porn industry will be jealous of. It's like how to maximize, like, and whether that's with a partner or by yourself, it's like how to work it so that way when you turn that thing back on, like you're gonna be like, holy shit, this is like,
Yeah. I think that's good because I think a lot of people try to film at home and they're like, oh my God, no.
Literally, it's like always like a what was happening? Why did I think this was gonna work? And I also feel like for a lot of people, it's like I don't even know where to start and like how to make an at-home porno. I think a lot of us are like, I think a lot of it is that people try to exactly replicate what they see in porn, and I'm like, you can't exactly replicate because you don't got tens of thousands of dollars of equipment. You don't have a fluffer standing by. You don't have somebody pumping lube in between shots that you can't see. Like there's so many pieces. And so when you try to recreate it, you leave out all those important things. And you're like, that was not fun by any means. Cause I tried to do exactly what I saw in the porno. It's like, no, because what you saw in the porno is everything you didn't see is what you needed to be doing. But also I think a big part of it is to like people, it can get intimidating and overwhelming to be like, we're going to make a movie at home together. We're going to do this. We're going to record it. And then like the like stress and anxiety hits you because you're like, oh my God, we're going to record this. Oh my God, what am I going to look like? And so I'm going to really help to give you tools to like actually step outside of like the anxiety producing aspects of it to truly have an enjoyable experience. Like, yes, the main goal is to like make a bomb ass at home porno, but also the goal is to enjoy it and have fun, whether it's by yourself or with a partner. Like the whole thing is that it's supposed to be enjoyable. Like if it's producing you stress, you shouldn't do it. That's why I have not put any new content on my OnlyFans recently, because I'm like, I'm too stressed to make freaking porn right now. Like I got to be in a good spot. And so the workshop is going to give you all of that. It's also going to like help you understand like how to set up them angles, like what should you actually do to get a good shot so you can later watch it and be like, oh, this is actually turning me on because I can see what I wanted to see. Instead of being like, well, I shot it at the angle that I thought would be good and all I see is like the top of my head. So I'm going to, help with that.
I'm very excited to hear what you have to say about that. Yeah. And I definitely hear you on the OnlyFans. I'm just like, ugh.
Like, I'm just like, I had this whole plan because my birthday's on Sunday and I was like, I'm going to do a special on my OnlyFans. I'm going to do a whole week of content and like give out goodies. And I was like, yeah, the world's in flames. I might do a tit pic for Titty Tuesday and that's about it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. It's hard to be inspired when shit's going down.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to like recognize the things that are taxing you and work with that and never feel like you have to pressure yourself to perform or pressure yourself to do all the things, right? Like there's so much to do in any facet of life, but especially when it comes to pleasure, it's like when it feels like a chore, that's not pleasurable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what we're going for.
Right. This has been so much fun. I am so excited to work with you on April 2nd. Tell us where we can find you on Instagram and all that.
So you can find me on Instagram, at TikTok at Millennial Sexpert, 2 N's. You can find me on Facebook at Javay, on Twitter at Dr. Effin Sex Ed. And you can also check out my website, The Millennial Sexpert. And I have a YouTube channel. Just search Javay da BAE. It's all the places you can find me. I would check them all out, especially because it's my birthday month. So I like to give people gifts for my birthday. So if you want some gifts, you should follow me. Also, the merch that I have coming is just like chef's kiss, like beautiful. Get ready to like let everybody know that you are a sex positive badass who is like all about their pleasure.
Awesome. When is this happening?
So the first new design will probably drop for Masturbation May.
Yay! Cool. Exciting. Perfect. I love it. All right. And thank you for saying 2 N's because I've been spelling millennial wrong. Like every single time I type it, it like shows up with the red underline. I was like, I know. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Yes. Oh, okay, everybody. It's time to spread your legs and spread the love. Like and share and follow and subscribe. Follow Javay, follow me at I Look Down There or at Michelle Amore. And make sure you visit InToPleasure.com to join us on April 2nd for our virtual Pleasure Positive event. It's going to feature 5 different pleasure experts, myself and Javay included. And we are so pumped. Yes, this is going to happen. So good. So check it out at IntoPleasure.com. And remember that confidence comes from the bottom up. So grab a mirror and look down there. See you next time.